Good morning, everybody. Pastor Sal here from the Ridge, and we're going to be continuing our daily devotional and um, based on this workbook here. It's called the Devotional Life in the Wesleyan Tradition. Um, it is a wonderful workbook. You can find it on for the Upper Room books. Just Google Upper Room books, and you'll find it there. If you would like the ISBN number, please just email me at sal at the ridge ep.com, and I'll go ahead and send you the information. It's a great workbook. Has um, Of course, it has the readings that we've been doing, and then has spots with the questions and where you can put the answers to those questions. And so, again, it's an example, and we're doing this daily devotion. It's a 7-week daily devotional based on the examples of John Wesley, who was the founder of Methodism. And so for over 65 years, little short of 66 years, he documented all his prayers, his prayers, his daily devotionals, the things that he read. He put scriptures to whatever he was reading, whatever he was writing, sermons, books, everything like that. He even published a Bible with his study notes in it. So I'm sure if you look hard enough, you might be able to find those. If not, you might be able to go to the SMU, Southern Methodist University Library online, and you might be able to find them there. And so also, um, different books and places, but Upper Room is one of the places, and Cokesbury might be one of the places where you might find his materials. So lots of stuff that he wrote. But today, this whole week, we've been talking about fasting and the different how fasting, how important is fasting, what are the different ways of fasting, what's the nature of fasting. Yesterday, we spoke about Wesley's personal example. Today, we're going to speak about early Methodist fasting. So, Wesley, for many years, for a period of about 13 years, from 1725 to 1738, he did more than just the Friday fast at the Anglican Church. He was an Anglican priest in the British church. So, um, he followed their tradition of fasting on Fridays. But then he also fasted on Wednesdays and Fridays for those 13 years. He shared his examples, he wrote down. So there's many different ways of fasting. And so today we're going to be talking about early Methodist fasting. So fasting finds its place in Methodism from the very beginning in the General Rules of 1743. Okay, all these things are documented. It's all the rules from the church are very well documented from this time on. So uh, if you ever want to look for them again, you can always Google them. You can look for them at Upper Rooms. They have books. They have the Book of Discipline, the Book of Worship, Common Book of Prayer, uh, all kinds of stuff. Wonderful stuff. And Wesley encouraged the United Societies to practice fasting as an example of, quote, attending upon all the ordinances of God. Okay. The general rules lay down no specific instructions as to the time, frequency, nature, or duration of the fast. But very early in the movement, Friday became the regular Methodist fast day. In 1744, when Wesley held the first annual conference, he addressed the subject of fasting in a way that sheds light on his custom and that of the early Methodist people. He wrote, quote, God led all of you to it when you first set out. How often do you fast now? Every Friday? In what degree? I purpose generally to eat only vegetables on Friday and to take only toast and water in the mornings. Okay, so that was kind of his example of doing things. So that's one example that you may want to follow. Maybe you need a starting point, and that's something that maybe you want to start with something like that, something simple with as to giving up all types of animal meat, uh, and then maybe only do vegetables on Friday. You may want to do the Daniel fast. Daniel fast. Remember that Daniel fasted. I can't remember off the top of my head for how many days. I think it was 30 days. I can't remember, but he fasted for X amount of days, and that was to prove to Nebuchadnezzar, the king of gosh, I'm going blind, Babylon. And so he did the fast because, of course, they were eating animals that were not animals that the Jewish people would eat it in those days. The Israelites, foods that they couldn't eat. They wouldn't prepare the animal meat the way that the Israelites would. They wouldn't do all the procedural things and all the traditions. And so Daniel made a deal with Nebuchadnezzar, and he said, if I if I if I only eat vegetables, nuts, berries, things like that for so many days, and if I'm healthier at the end of that time than your people, your other people that were around his court that would eat these types of fancy foods and fancy meats and all kinds of stuff, and if he was healthier, then he would continue to be allowed to continue to eat only vegetables, because if you were part of Nebuchadnezzar's court at that time, you had to eat what the king told you had to eat. And so he made a deal with him, and Daniel won. So again, one of the other wonderful things about Daniel, he didn't just because he prayed, and then he just didn't survive the lion's den. He survived many things. So it's a good book to read, Book of Daniel. So that's one way that you might be able to do. You might want to fast in the Daniel way of fasting for so many days. There's so many different ways that you can fast. You can fast from social media. You can fast from, you know, television or certain shows, or you don't watch certain movies, that sort of thing. So anyway, these instructions seem to indicate that Wesley was practicing abstinence more than total fasting during his period, and that he was recommending the same to his preachers at the conference. Here is yet another example of Wesley's avoidance of rigorous asceticism and his emphasis on the primacy of prayer and devotion during one's fast. So, right, rigorous asceticism. That's um, when you want to fast to the point where you do take it too far, where now you're causing harm to yourself and your health. If you're diabetic, you can't be fasting um, all day long, from morning to evening, and not have some health repercussions of it. So, or you can't be, for example, oh gosh, you can't be with cancer and then fast like a normal person would, or certain other illnesses as well. Um, and that's just because you don't want to cause harm to your health, because like Wesley taught us earlier in the week, we have to take care of our bodies and our health as a gift from God. If we have good health, even if we have diabetes, but the rest of us is healthy, the rest of us, the rest of our body functions well, you want to keep your body functioning well, because that's a gift from God, right? If you don't eat, what happens? Or if you eat too much, what happens? Then what happens is your sugars go too high or your sugars go too low. That starts to affect your organs. So the thing is you want to keep whatever part of your body is still healthy, keep it up as a gift from God, because you're healthy in that way because of the gift of God, right? Of course, you have to take care of yourself from their illness as well. So that's what he's talking about with rigorous asceticism. You want to do things, you want to fast, but fast in a way that does not harm your health either. Okay. Um, if a person's perfectly healthy, they could fast a whole day. They could even fast, you know, uh, for several days. For example, right now, our Muslim brothers and sisters, they are going through Ramadan. And so for 30 days, 30 through 35 days, I can't remember exactly how many days it is, but um, they fast from sunrise to sundown. It's just normally roughly like here in a sunny area of the country, could be from anywhere from like 5:45 in the morning to about 8 o'clock at night. They cannot even drink water. Okay, and they also fast from speaking bad words or speaking bad about somebody. They also fast from watching things that are not supposed to be watched, stuff like that. So, um, but they're able to do that, and the and not necessarily harm physically their body. So, a normal person can do that. However, it takes practice. It takes time. You can't just do it cold turkey. So, like I said, take some time to do that. All right. So enough of that. In 1768, Wesley issued a directive to the societies. 1768, Wesley issued a directive to the societies fixing quarterly fast days in September, January, April, and July. Additionally, the annual conference checked up on the practices of Friday fasting. Interestingly, the subject of fasting led into the larger topic of Christian perfection. The conference recorded that the issue of self denial was significant in the pursuit of holiness, and that fasting was an assistance in that regard. Wesley also believed that God blessed the act of fasting by providing great revival among the people. So when you practice self denial, it it encompasses your opportunity to seek that Christian perfection that Wesley believed that you can achieve. Okay. He did believe that we can achieve Christian perfection and that we could pursue a holy life because we serve a holy God. So we too must be holy. But it takes time and you have to pursue it and you have to seek it and you have to do it on a daily basis. It's daily devotional. That's what daily devotional means. Okay, not just every once in a while. No, every single day. You have to be persistent. You have to be uh, what's the word that I'm looking for? You have to be on it every single day. Uh, just persistent, persistent. Okay, we can conclude our brief survey of early Methodist fasting by letting one of Wesley's early followers tell us about her example. Hannah Ball's testimony is typical of many others in the movement. She wrote that her weekly fast day was a fast day to my body, but a feast day to my soul. Let me read that again. Quote, and this is Hannah Ball: a fast day to my body, but a feast day to my soul. She went on to speak of her fast as a time of unusual freedom of spirit and communion with God. See, that's what we seek when we fast. Okay, um, we just we just have to seek it every day. All right. We cannot to end we cannot to end today's reading we cannot end today's reading without recalling the clear note of celebration in the fasts of early Methodists. Indeed, in Wesley's own example and instruction, we too easily think of fasting as a negative spiritual discipline. Our predecessors considered it a positive act. Okay, so fasting is not something that you do when you're trying necessarily when you're trying to ask for penitence or ask for forgiveness from God when you do something. That's traditionally, for many denominations and for many people, that's what they see fasting as as a way of saying how sinful we are, and so we have to self-deny. No, it can also be positive. It could be preventative maintenance for the soul. You fast because you want to be closer to God, because you want to seek Him. You want to self-deny yourself and seek a closer relationship with Him. That's what you can do on fasting as well. This difference in viewpoint is a call to reconnect with our tradition and to rediscover the joy of fasting in the devotional life. Okay, again, it's a devotional life. It's not devotional time, but devotional life. Um, and we have to be persistent. We just have to keep at it all the time. Uh, and so I'm seeking a word, but it does not come to me. I pray it almost every day, but it's part of what my prayer that I do. But it's not coming to my mind, but I'll remember right now. So, reflecting question is: think about the obvious connection between fasting and feasting. The early Methodists saw them as two parts of a larger whole. How might these elements work together in your life? Okay, think about what Hannah Ball. She also wrote down. She was one of the people in the early Methodist movement, and so she also wrote down her experiences and her testimonies. But I like what she says, where she says, "quote A fast day to my body, but a feast day to my soul." So you see, you have the fast and you have the feast there. And then also she went on to say, "quote Unusual freedom of spirit and communion with God," when she fasted. So think about those things. And she says, and we have here, how might these elements work together in your life? Fasting and feasting. The early Methodists saw them as two parts of a larger whole. Okay, so uh, good question to think about there. Number two says, list as many aspects of celebration as you can in relation to a regular practice of fasting. Okay, so you want to list um, aspects of celebration as you can in relation to a regular practice in fasting. Okay, so what kind of celebrations could you do as part of your fasting? Of course, you have Lent, you have Easter, you have Fridays on during Lent. You may have, during Advent season. You may fast during that time. You may fast during the time of Thanksgiving. You may fast during times of Pentecost season. I'm not, Epiphany season, whatever celebrations you can think of and that you can relate with regular practice of fasting. And then relating. The relating question is one of the ancient spiritual disciplines is simplicity. While it is not one of the formal instituted or prudential means of grace, simplicity is related to the practice of fasting. How might fasting enable you to live a more simple life? Okay, so how might fasting enable you to live a more simple life? So, in your journal that you've been writing, hopefully you've been writing in a journal or you have a notebook where you can write down how might fasting enable you to live a more simple life? And how might such simplicity become a means of helping others? So, how might such simplicity in fasting become a means of helping others? How can you help others by fasting? Maybe you pray for somebody else. Maybe you self deny yourself. And maybe the meal that you would have during that day, you go and donate it to somebody that needs the meal. Think about that too. That's another way of helping others. Um, God, there's so many other ways. Maybe by staying away from television and social media and all these things that feed such negativity a lot of times, or that persecute or show how Christians are dumb, or they show that we're judgmental and all kinds of stuff. These shows that they persecute us and or they picture us as being the worst. Maybe we stay away from those things because and it feeds our soul, and we just focus on changing the mindset of others of what a Christian really should be, seeking that Christian perfection, that we help others, that we don't judge them, but we help them. Uh, when it's not to say that we're going to condone um, the life that they're living, or that we're going to accept the life that they're living or agree with their lifestyles, but at the same time we're not going to be judgmental of them, in other words, not condemn them, uh, and still help and pray those that are homeless, pray for those and help those that are on the streets. Just because they're on the streets doesn't mean that they're bums and lazy. I mean, there's so many different reasons as to why people prefer to live on the street. It could be a mental thing. It could be that they have no self confidence. It could be that something happened to them in their life. Talking to many people, when I used to be the pastor at Emmanuel, we got to speak to some of those people, and there's many different reasons as to why people do what they do. We don't know their stories. We don't know what they've been through. We don't know what their fears are. Uh, yes, there's a lot of people that prefer it because they're just lazy. Yes, I get that, but there's a very large majority of the people there are there for a reason. Something in their life happened that caused them to believe that their only way to continue on is to be out in the streets. and it's for those that we have to pray for. So again, just many different ways that you can fast, and how can you help others by fasting. So think about that. All right, so that's our reading for today. um, if you have any questions, please send me an email at sal@theridgeep.com. You can also send your prayers to prayers@theridgeep.com. We will pray for you. We will stay in connection with you. We'll stay communicating with you. Um, know that you're in this journey, but you're not alone in this journey. Okay, we're here to continue that journey with you, to seek what John Wesley felt we could lead as a true devotional life, seek Christian perfection, and seek a true holy life, because we serve a holy God. And so, therefore, we must be holy too, because He created us in His image. And so, you have a wonderful day, and God bless.